So, I've always considered myself an ally to the gay community, but it took me a while to fully understand the trans community and why they feel like they were born into the wrong body. It wasn't until I began my own unmasking when I self-identified autistic, before I received my diagnosis, that I began to understand what the trans community goes through. Masking, trying to be something you're not for so long, and then finally getting the courage to begin to open up and bring what's inside outside. That I began to understand it. For this, I thought transgenderism was a psychological issue. You know, I tried not to judge people for that. I did have my beliefs early on in my college career. I did feel that psychology classes were becoming too woke because of it. But the more I learned, specifically in my college biology class, with the development of people and how we actually all start out physically female. Don't believe me, look it up. It's very difficult going through life feeling like you have to hide who you are, feeling like you can't share your full self, your full unique self with the world, with the people you love, with your community, or else you're going to be judged, oftentimes ridiculed and humiliated for it. You're going to be bullied for it. Now, if you're one of these people who has a problem with trans using the same restroom as your child, might I suggest that you provide adult supervision. If your child goes into the restroom, stand there at the door. Not the door to the stall. The door to the restroom. Stand inside, stand outside, whatever. Keep the door cracked. Fine. And that should be how you handle these situations, no matter who goes into the restroom after your child. It shouldn't just be about trans people or gay people going into the restroom after your child and you feeling like they're unsafe. Your children are just as unsafe, while at the same time just as safe, with straight people going into the restroom after them. It's not the people themselves you have to worry about. It's the individual person. I personally feel we need to do away with these gender separating restrooms. A lot of places now have family restrooms where males and females, trans, whatever, can go into a restroom together. And the stalls are from floor to ceiling to where no one can peek over. The doors go fill up the entire space of the entryway and they lock. I feel that we're at a point in our society that these standards which have served us over the past century or so are no longer required. Because, you have mothers who are single mothers and have young children and have been forced to take their boys into the women's restroom because they can't supervise them in the men's restroom. You have single dads who have been forced to take their little girls into the men's restroom. It's time we get away from this gender separation. And it's also time for us to become a little bit more understanding of our fellow human being. When we found out that they were trans, I don't think we handled it in the best way. My wife was going through some things in the garage and found a journal that she thought was one of her old ones. It turned out to be my oldest, because the page she opened it up into just happened to be one of my oldest talking about transitioning from female to male, how they felt like they were born in the wrong body, and once they got old enough they were going to have a sex change and all this. Our response was to sit my oldest down, tell them no matter what, they're loved, that we love them for who they are, but we also told them that nothing was going to change who they were born as. Which can be a devastating thing to hear for anybody. We told them that because they were born female, they were never going to fully be a male. That they could change their name, they could take testosterone and all this, but that they were always going to genetically be female and physically down there. I thought at the time that we were handling that the right way. In our minds, we weren't judging them. We weren't trying to judge them. We were trying to be supportive. We just didn't understand at the time. We didn't understand what they were going through mentally. We didn't understand what they were going through spiritually. We didn't understand what they were going through deep in their core, their being. I mean, to this day, it is still difficult for my wife and I to refer to them by any other name than the one that we had spent their entire life calling them. Publicly, we do try to acknowledge them by their new name. They were going by he for a while. Now they're more comfortable with they, them pronouns. I tried to, at least publicly, I tried to acknowledge them by their preferred name and pronouns and everything. While just talking between me and my wife, we would call them by their dead name. From a parent's perspective, it's difficult. It's not only difficult to understand, but it's difficult to think of your child as someone other than who you always thought they were. And it's difficult to call them by some other name. But I also recall shortly before I got married, I began going by a different last name. I hadn't legally changed it yet. I began going by my mother's maiden name, which is Cornthwaite. And my father kind of got upset by that. He called me out and he said, if you want to go by a different last name, then you need to legally have it changed. This whole change, saying your last name is something else just because you're mad at me or whatever is horseshit, blah, 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 blah. What he didn't realize is I had already gotten the wheels turning to have my last name legally changed from Hickey to Cornthwaite. And it wasn't because I was mad at him. I mean, I was mad at him at the time, but that isn't why I had my last name changed. I had never really related much to that side of the family. Personality-wise, I was nothing like them. I was the black sheep. Morally, I wasn't like them. Socially, I wasn't like them. I was absolutely nothing like that side of the family. And with that, I decided to take my mom's maiden name because that side of the family is who I related more towards. That was the side of the family I was closest to. That was the side of the family I grew up with. I felt more like a Cornthwaite than a Hickey. I was given the last name Hickey at birth. But throughout my life, my father's side of the family has very rarely ever been there. But my maternal side of the family has always been there. For the most part. Individuals within my maternal side of the family have always been there, I should say. And so I can understand the need for someone to feel like they have to change their name in order to feel like their true self. But it took me a while to understand that. Because even after I had changed my last name, I didn't quite understand why somebody would feel a need to change everything about themselves. But it's not about changing about everything about yourself. It's about bringing what's inside you outside and sharing it with the world. It's about being who you were meant to be, who you're more comfortable being. It's about finding yourself and being true to that person. You know, when I began unmasking, I began bringing what's inside outside. I began experimenting with some things, with different things that were often considered childish or feminine. The jewelry, the nail painting. The nail painting is actually fairly recent. Before, the only color I would ever paint my nails was black. Occasionally I would wear black lipstick in high school or eyeliner. But that was very occasionally, and it was only ever black. Black fingernails, black lipstick, black eyeliner, black hair. I never felt comfortable enough to do any other color because when I was growing up, even the idea of painting your nails was considered very feminine. You were often mocked and called slurs that were meant for the LGBTQ community. Even growing my hair long, I was often, anytime I would start to grow my hair long, I was often teased, mostly by family members on my paternal side of the family, saying that I was feminine, teasing me, kind of insinuating that I was gay and all this, which there would be nothing wrong with if I was. I'm not, but anytime I showed even the hint of femininity, I would get ridiculed for it. There was a time that my oldest brother told me that the whole family thought I was gay. Because in a family, as he puts it, with so many boys, there had to be at least one, and because of my goth style and everything, everyone assumed I was, and that I was in the closet. When he told me this, it had me questioning myself. Had me questioning my own identity and even my sexuality. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I am only attracted to women sexually. But that isn't to say that other people can't be attracted to the same sex or gender. But what I'm getting at is you have to feel comfortable with who you are. You have to, in order to be happy, you have to bring what's outside, or what's inside outside. And if that requires experimenting, if that requires completely changing your look, changing your name, changing your presentation, go for it. Don't worry about what other people think or say. People are going to talk. People are always going to talk. People are always going to judge you no matter what you do. Everyone is judged. It's not right, but it's what happens. And yeah, your family could either accept you or disown you. But if they do disown you, it's not the end of the world. It may feel like the end of the world, because these are people who are supposed to love you and care for you no matter what, unconditionally. But that says more about them than you. We as parents don't have to understand our children to love and accept them and support them no matter what. But we as people need to understand ourselves before we can love, accept, and support ourselves. In order to understand ourselves, we have to experiment. We have to start bringing what's inside outside. Only you need to be happy with who you are.